Welcome, curators. I'm so happy that you're here, that you're a guest in this gallery. So nice to be hosting all of this work, and so grateful that you're here to give us a tour. And that's all that I'll say about that. So Stacey Koosel, Redhead. Thank you for being here.
Hello. Hello. Thank you so much for coming here today. We thought we'd begin by telling you a little bit about who we are, how we met, and how this exhibition sort of came together. Marianne, I guess I'll let you go first.
Oh, okay. I'm Marianne Redhead. I live in Winnipeg. I am doing a master's in curatorial practices currently at the University of Winnipeg. And I've been curating for a few years now in all kinds of different settings. But I think this is the first one where I've kind of really left Winnipeg and did something outside of the city. So it's been really exciting, and it's been great to work with Stacey on this.
Mary's also a curator at the Winnipeg Art Gallery.
Yeah.
Curator of Indigenous contemporary art or Indigenous art?
Yeah, Indigenous and contemporary art, yeah.
So Mary and I met, I guess I'll introduce myself. My name is Stacey Koosel. I'm an art history professor at Brandon University. I specialize in Indigenous contemporary art. I'm a citizen of the Manitoba Métis Nation, and I've been living in Brandon just for the last 2-3 years. I'm going into my third fall teaching at Brandon University, and Mary and I met at a Canada Council funded artist and curator delegation to northern Norway, where the Sami people live. They're the indigenous people of northern Norway. And there was a really big exhibition there, and they wanted to bring a delegation of indigenous curators and artists together, and it was sort of a mentoring situation. And Mary and I got talking while we were in Norway, and she was like, I'm from Winnipeg. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm from Brandon. And we're like, oh, very funny that we have to meet all the way here in Norway, that we didn't meet in Manitoba. But we got speaking about some artists that we really liked. We were talking about Jessie, Jannuska. We were talking about Michelle Sound. And we're like, wow, we love the same artists. We're really inspired by the same things. We should really do something together. So I was talking with Lucille already about ideas about exhibitions. And Prairie Thunder, for me, is inspired by Michelle Sound, who's the artist who made these drums here and the photographs there as well. In fact, we can start to move around and start to look at Michelle Sound's art while we introduce Michelle Sound and the idea of Prairie Thunder. I've moved here from Kelowna. I was working at UBC Okanagan, UBC Okanagan Gallery in Kelowna, which is in Okanagan in British Columbia. And we have something run by Tanya Willard, who's a very well-known artist, curator, and amazing human being, called the Indigenous Art Intensive. And the Indigenous Art Intensive is a 1-month artist studio residency. So artists come and they make artwork. We also do artist talks. In fact, Mare will be presenting at the Indigenous Art Intensive in a few weeks. She'll be in Kelowna as well. But I met Michelle Sound at the Indigenous Art Intensive. Michelle was an artist in residence, and she was making these pieces, these cyanotype, while I was there. In fact, she made them over 2 summers. She made them in 2023 and then again in 2024. And this series here she made when she was in the Okanagan. And this series called Every Photo I Have of My Mother. And it is literally every single photograph that she owns, she physically owns, of her mother. So Michelle found out when she was 18 years old, and this is a bit of a soap opera story, so yeah, I'm preparing for gasps, that who she thought her mother was actually her aunt. And her mother had passed away when she was quite young, and her aunt had raised her as her daughter, and then told her just sort of casually when she was 18 years old or so that actually, your real mom was your auntie who passed away many years ago. And so like many children who grew up not knowing their parents, she went back into pictures, she went into memories to learn more about her actual birth mother. And that's where these pictures came from. And she decided that she wanted to do this tribute to her mother and the relationship that they weren't able to have in cyanotypes. And so these are made outside. She used sunlight to develop these photographs. The medicine that she found, and she also brought with her sage and sweetgrass and different medicines on top of the drums, would be sort of captured by the sunlight and made into these photographs. And this is where the spooky bit sort of comes in. She felt like she was sort of doing a seance, sort of to bring her mother's spirit through, and her mother would be fighting her. Sometimes her mother's face wouldn't show up, everything else would be perfect, but her mother was refusing to come through the pictures, or her mother's face would appear and then completely disappear, like just sort of fade out. So she felt like she was having this sort of other realm relationship with her mother, one of these mother-daughter relationships where they were arguing and her mother was being difficult and not doing what she wanted her to do. And I found that particularly endearing and moving as well, that these were like ghosts of her mother. This was like sort of on another realm of existence.
Was there a lot of, did she have to remake all the drums?
She had to redo a lot of things a lot of times, which is a lot of work because these are elk hide that are stretched and very labor intensive, very expensive. Takes a lot of time as well. Yeah.
Wait, I understand how they do the plants, but how do they do the photographs?
Do you understand how cyanotype works?
Yeah, well, you have to reproduce the photograph onto, you basically print it onto another surface, the transparent, and then you make a negative with that original photograph. So you basically reverse. And then you use the transparent to print it, did she talk about the material that she was printing on? Because it's obviously pretty uncommon use, hide or something like that for cyanotype.
No, I don't know. But what else she printed on besides the hide for the cyanotypes? These are stretched drum hides, but there was also just some sort of loose sort of pelt sort of hides as well that she was experimenting on. And the longevity of these is also, I shouldn't be that. It's also going to be a question, how they last sort of in the future as well. Because they really change, like the colors and the fading and everything.
Yeah.
But so this is every photo I have of my mother. And on the other side of this wall, we have Indian aunties. And this is a homage to the fun and glamorous aunties in our lives. We could see bits of fashion, bits of material from secondhand stores where Michelle Sound had sort of harvested these materials. We have bits of fringe and leopard print and denim jackets and leather biker jackets. This is sort of speaking to the people in our lives that sort of give us this inspiration, that give us this sort of glamour, that give us somebody to look up to, and guidance. And if we remember, Michelle Sound's mother was also her auntie. So this is also speaking to the relationships of your mother's sisters or your father's sisters and the roles that they play in our lives.
I like kind of what you were talking about before too with the other drums, what you're saying about it in terms of preserving them or how long will they last. I really like the idea of bringing drums and hide into gallery spaces and museum spaces because it forces us to see art and these objects as something that doesn't have to be permanent. I think things can change. Lita Fontaine, an artist I work with, who has exhibited here before, she makes drums too, and it's a reality that they, crack, they fall apart, and that's just if it's time to let it go, then that's what it is, and she buries them, and for her it means the spirit is over the. Sort of the motivation is gone for that object, and so I kind of like that. I like that Michelle uses, these customary or traditional objects, and infuses them with these things that we associate with the contemporary and living relatives and stuff. But it's something that will eventually also, just fade away, and that's okay. That's life.
Well, when you're talking about Lita Fontaine, so Mare curated a really great exhibition at the Winnipeg Art Gallery right now called Lita Fontaine Winyan? Wiya.
Yeah.
Dakota for women.
Well, yeah.
And when you enter the exhibition, you hear the heartbeat of a drum in the center of the exhibition. And these drums as well, if we think about the heartbeats of the women who were behind these pieces or who inspired these pieces, the aunties and mothers, and the heartbeat and the continuation so that's sort of inspiring. So we don't have a heartbeat in this exhibition. We have this beautiful, etheric, ghostly singing by Cheyenne LeGrande in the background.
There's a lot of like kind of ghostly, like spectral elements, I think, in this exhibition too. So, and like the idea of haunting, and
I guess like in the broader overview, we're talking about the theme of the exhibition, and I think I forgot to talk about this, Michelle Sound's laugh. So Michelle Sound, as an artist, she's the sort of person that you'll hear her laughing like 3 rooms away before you actually see her.
Yeah.
She just has this really loud, thunderous sort of cackle. And so when we were thinking about names for this, and we were thinking about the way the aunties would laugh. We would think of the way that when your family gets together, they would just kill themselves laughing.
Yeah.
And that's what we wanted to bring, is this sort of warmth and power. It's a little bit dangerous as well. It's, you can't completely trust it.
Yeah.
So that's where the thunder element comes in. But talking about the strength of prairie people, the strength of their connections, their relationships with their family, with the land, with each other.
I think there's like a static kind of like electricity to the prairies as well. Like I associate it with with lightning too, and transmission lines. And so I was thinking of those kind of images as well. And I think transmission and the idea of transmitting knowledge and practices, cultural practices, doesn't necessarily have to be along like blood kinship lines either. So for example, I wanted to include, if we move over this way, I wanted to include a piece that was gifted to me by a Métis beadwork artist, Margaret Firlat. She is an amazing artist, and I'm sure we're going to more from her in the coming years. She was taught by Janine Crouchy, who is also a very important, prolific beader. And so, I just wanted to honor those other forms of cultural transmission that occur. This was a result of a class that we took together with Kathy Mattis, and Kathy had us all gifting each other beadwork. And so this came out of conversations between Margaret and I, where I talked about, feeling sort of displaced from my own culture. So I forgot to mention this at the start, but I'm a member of Fox Lake Cree Nation. So I'm actually Swampy Cree, and our territory is all the way up in the north near Churchill. So I feel like those... I just feel sort of like displaced, I guess, sometimes, and haven't been able to learn as much from my relatives and my blood kin, who are all up north. And so, it was just a way to honor those ties that we find from the prairies. So that's...
The text on the work, we're here for you whenever you're ready. This means also sort of people who have passed, people who are no longer with, sort of a message that we're when you need us sort of thing. So for me, this sort of continues this sort of this idea of the prairies, and
I like that, because I actually hadn't connected it to ancestors as much. I was thinking also just of like relatives who are alive and with us. But that's a good connection. And I think also of the sky and how we often look to the sky for confirmation, that ancestors are there, and how living the sky is here in the prairies too. So that there's that sort of connection as well, I think, to the Prairie Thunder theme.
Absolutely.
And,
And the materials as well, the processed or the commercial hide, and then the handmade hide using traditional methods, also speaking sort of about this transfer of knowledge like you were speaking about before when we think about the lightning and what was the term you use?
Transmission.
Transmission.
Transmission lines. Yeah.
So the idea of electrocuted sort of. I mean, it could be rough. It could be transformational. But once again, sort of connecting the past to the present to the future, sort of in sort of one line. Speaking, being told sort of through materials that are chosen as well.
That was definitely on purpose. We were talking about, like hunting, and Margaret had a lot of experience hunting and tanning hide and things like that. So we were just talking about our experiences with hide, and I just expressing that I wasn't quite ready yet to start experimenting with hide. So she was just trying to encourage me. And, that's where that came from.
So a literal message to Mare, and that's what the piece is called as well, a message of encouragement to Mare?
Yes.
From Mare, a letter of encouragement. There we go.
But we can talk more about that hesitation to work with certain materials as well. As a curator, and I dabble a little bit with my own artistic practice too, but the hesitation to work with certain materials because I don't want to be boxed in too. So
definitely a struggle for Indigenous artists to exactly not fall into the sort of pigeonholes that people would like to place them in, right? To work with only certain mediums or only with certain sort of styles. Exactly. So a struggle for Indigenous artists. I guess we'll move on to the Laurie Blondeau pieces right behind us here. So these are epic. These are very well known. Laurie Blondeau is somebody who sort of came onto the contemporary Indigenous art scene in the 1990s with pieces like Cosmo Squaw and Lonely Surfer Squaw. She was questioning how Indigenous females are viewed and their sort of role in society. This is a more contemporary piece of hers. What was this? 2016. And this piece is called Asini Isko. I pronounced it properly, I think. If anyone knows Cree, they can correct me, but Asini Isko. So Asini means rock woman in Cree. And we could see Laurie Blondeau standing on these boulders, these stones. And the story of a particular stone and place where she's standing goes back to a sacred site for the Plains Indigenous people, a big boulder called Misaseni, and it was in Elbow Harbor, which is on the of the Qu'Appelle?
Yeah, the Qu'Appelle Valley.
The Qu'Appelle Valley in Saskatchewan. Qu'Appelle? Qu'Appelle Valley and so there's this large boulder from the last ice age, and it was sacred to the Cree people, to the Indigenous people of the area, and the stone in the 1960s was destroyed. They had flooded the there to make space for the Lake Diefenbaker, and the stone was submerged. And there was actually a local anthropologist and art professor at the University of Regina, that we should really save this stone. It's a sacred site for Indigenous people. It was part of many different sort of cultures, legends and myths. The idea of this stone dropped from the sky by a big eagle, and it was like a sort of the shape of a buffalo laying down. But instead, in the 1960s. People came from the government. Let me see who they were. And they used many sticks of dynamite, and they blew up the stone into millions of little pieces. Stones represent grandmothers, grandfathers, and so when we see Laurie Blondeau standing on these here, we're talking about many different relationships that Indigenous people have to we see her literally standing on the shoulders of grandfathers or grandmothers. We see her honoring sacred sites. We see her resilience and her strength after these sort of and you can ask yourself, like, why did this stone have to be exploded? Why did it have to be dynamited in 1960? It was obviously to sort of displace these sort of beliefs and strengths. And so, to me, this series of images is a story of resilience and strength. And of course, the red dresses, once again speaking to the missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirits.
She has a lot of versions, I guess, of these like red sort of garments that she wears in her performances and in her photographs. She's wearing red. And yeah, it's also, I think, speaking to like monuments as well, in the way like colonial monuments are like so protected and preserved, and then these sort of really meaningful monuments to Indigenous people are just blown up. So yeah, playing around with the idea of like the monumental, I think is really important here too. Yeah.
The work on the far wall over there is by an artist from Saskatchewan called Audie Murray, and this work is called For Hambone, Métis Billy Stick. And so we have quite a few works by Audie Murray in this exhibition, and many of them speak to sort of her relationships with relatives and with people who are no longer with us, but who left a great sort of impression in her life. So For Hambone is the story of a Métis billy stick that her grandfather made, her mushroom made. And it's a recreation of the billy stick that he created. The billy stick, of course, talking about RCMP, police brutality, and the relationships that Indigenous people have maybe had with law enforcement. And this was sort of a playful piece that her grandfather made, and then decided to do sort of this homage, this sort of recreation of the piece to sort of continue to honor her grandfather and the humor and the aesthetics and the knowledge that sort of transferred. These sort of pieces are made.
Yeah, there's a few sort of like almost, well, I don't want to say hidden, but there's like little Audie Murray Easter eggs all over the gallery as well. Yeah, she's a great artist. She's a great bead worker, and I think she's an artist who also feels sort of complicated relationship with beadwork as well. But yeah, maybe we could get into that a little bit more with the other
pieces.
Audie Murray pieces.
We'll look at the Michelle Sound photographs here. So I forgot to mention before, Michelle Sound is a Sobey Art Award long-listed artist. So the Sobey Art Award is like the biggest contemporary art award in Canada. The top artists are nominated every year, and Michelle Sound was long-listed this year as a Sobey Art Award winner. So Michelle's career, her impact has been very wide-reaching. There we go. That's a word. From Paris to New York. This was her first show, however, in Manitoba. So we were so proud and so excited, and the AGSM could be very proud as well to be the first ones to show Michelle Sound's work. But this series here of photographs, we could see these are once again old photographs from Michelle Sound's family, with rips and tears in them that have been repaired with beads, with quill, with moose hair, or I think some are caribou hair tufting. And we can see sort of these ways of sort of mending these sort of scars, these sort of damage that has been done to the past, damage that's been done to her families and relationships. This image here is called Foster Care. It's about when Michelle Sound was given up, had to go into foster care for a little while when she was a child. This is a photograph of her and her mother, and it's called Mother Tongue. The sort of oversized beads here, I think, are particularly beautiful, and the big sort of tufting that sort of repairs these sort of rips and tears in the photograph, and metaphorically in the memory as well, in the relationship. And then and I'm forgetting the story behind this piece a little bit. This was from a booklet that they gave Cree women about how to pronounce words in English. So it's sort of like translation of the, and I forget exactly where this came from, sorry.
She does a lot of this sort of using these like kind of documents and like intervening with with these materials like beads and quills and tufting, which it's signaling for me the idea of like intergenerational resilience and repair, as opposed to because we talk so much about intergenerational trauma and all the trauma we inherit from our, but for me this is symbolizing something else, something something generative and like mending, healing.
That's sort of like underlying theme of this exhibition as well. Like we sort of made the conscious choice that we don't want to frame Indigenous artists, Indigenous women artists as sort of victims to history, to ongoing violence and mistreatment. We really want on the healing, the strength, the power, the magic, the spirit. And it was supposed to be a feel-good, a feel-good exhibition.
It's not to deny that, obviously there's the colonial reality is still the colonial reality, but sometimes it's just good to focus on just for our mental health. To focus on the good.
Uplifting. We'll move on here to another Audie Murray pieces. So this work here is called Three Strands Are Stronger Than One. This is Lucille Fisher. So Lucille Fisher is Audie Murray's mother. This exhibition also looks at a lot of mother-daughter relationships. So Michelle Sound, we have her mother there. And then this piece, Lucille Fisher is speaking about Audie Murray's childhood memories of her grandmother, her kukum, making beadwork to sell. And she was absolutely mesmerized by it. She was absolutely in love with the beautiful necklaces that grandmother would make. And she asked her grandmother for one. And her grandmother said, no, these are for selling. But then at her birthday, her grandmother gifted her one. And it was so special. It was so meaningful to her that she wore it a lot. And then recently, when she had her own daughter, she gifted it to her daughter. So it was very meaningful for her to be able to pass down this beadwork to her daughter, the sort of three generations, so three strands being stronger than one. And also the colors that she chose as well, she wanted to sort of connect it to the earth. So she chose these sort of iris and amethyst sort of tones to connect the work in the space to the people. So her family's from Lebret, Saskatchewan. That's where her grandmother was from. So that's where sort of this piece is sort of referencing that time and space. Do you want us to the other aspects to it, or?
Yeah, there's the blue color as well. I feel, for me, the blue is always, it has that kind of haunting, like ghost feel to it. So I think, multiple.
The first time it was exhibited, it was in a window, so that curtain, literally a curtain as well. Privacy versus welcoming.
The necklace itself, it's blown up, sort of like the stone that Laurie Blondeau is on as well. It's to sort of symbolize the importance, to symbolize the opulence and the power that this little necklace that her grandmother gave her, how it felt to her, how meaningful it was to her. So that the size is sort of referencing that as well. Another Audie Murray piece that we have here is called We Are Always Love. And this is a bit of a fun piece because you could take selfies in the mirror because it's sort of an infinity mirror bouncing back and forth. Mary, do you want to speak to this one first?
It's this one I think was first exhibited for the one at the Dunlop Art Gallery, right? The Powhatan, the spider. So the imagery of like a spider creating a web, and spider in this case is from the Cree stories, creation stories, and Audie was invoking the spider as like an ancestor, and so that's sort of the imagery at play here, but also like childhood, sort of referring to childhood and thinking. Audie was thinking about herself as a child and sort of doing research into her past, and so was doing that through the creation of this like daisy chain, which is something that I think like, especially, I don't know, I feel like I saw this kind of thing a lot growing up in the 90s. So, and then that's, I think also the mirror is there to obviously encourage you to look, and the idea of like, it's like an infinite, the infinite sort of line, everything is like connected, and it just continues into eternity. It was really dramatic, but yeah.
It's a very simple but very poetic piece. Yeah, definitely, I think it's talking about the generations behind us, and then also the future generations standing in front of us, and sort of this continuation of life.
Yeah.
So once again, sort of tapping into other sort of realms and dimensions and times, and
yeah. And then I think having that with, right next to these gloves here, I'm with the culture's feeling.
Yep.
That was from, anyways, I think there was a reference to Kendrick Lamar there.
Yes, yeah, it is.
Yeah. Okay, so this is maybe where I'll mention, this was created I think this is the first time they're exhibited.
They were made for this.
So these are the newest piece in the show. I think for me, this piece like embodies what I was mentioning earlier about Audie's relationship to beadwork and like beads as a material. She, I think, felt, I don't want to speak for her, but from a lot of what I've read and what she's said to us, she felt very compelled to engage with beads in her arts practice as an art student. And which is, it's a thing. It's something I also do. It's always nice to see ancestral beadwork and get to interact with that and engage with it in your own practice. But I think there's currently, how do I say this? There's a particular way I think that the larger public is engaging with beadwork in a sort of like very, it's very consumptive. Is that a word?
Extractive?
Extractive, yeah. And I think, and Audie is speaking to that with this piece. There's like a very, there's like a critical sort of energy. I don't know if critical is the right word, coming from these gloves, but I think she was talking about how sometimes it feels like there's spaces that they say that they're meant for Indigenous people, the Indigenous artists, but they're not. And so I think also with the billy stick over there, sometimes Audie chooses not to exhibit it, like actually have the objects themselves in the space. So she's very conscious of, and instead has a photograph, of the billy stick. So she's very conscious of space, the galleries where her art will be. And she as another example of her take on beadwork, she recently beaded this like really big cake. It's beautiful. And it's called
Consume.
Yeah, Consume. And it's literally about just the overconsumption of beadwork.
Yes, so it's one of these things that, like, when things are done with good intention in the beginning, like land acknowledgements, but then they lose their meaning because they're just a box that's sort of checked, and no real change and no real sort of intention is behind the actions. It's the same thing with beading. That beading has become a very popular thing right now. It's something that's really popular in institutions as well. But it's really easy to consume. It's a fun thing that everyone can do. But is there any commitment to any change? Is there any actually commitment to truth and reconciliation, which a lot of Indigenous people are sort of uncomfortable with as an idea anyway. So it's sort of speaking to that. It's speaking to the assumption that, for example, me as a Métis person, that I have to bead and I have to be good at, that people who have been disconnected from their culture or from their Indigenous identities for many years can just pick up beading, and then all of a sudden, magic, they're reconnected or something. So there's a lot of sort of criticism about sort of this the culture right now, and that's what's sort of being expressed in these gloves.
Yeah.
So we could see the porcupine quill nails. These are sort of dangerous. These are angry. These are fighting gloves. Wolverine. So yeah, that's sort of the criticism that Audie's sort of letting us know. And the title, "I'm What the Culture is Feeling," this is sort of a conversation that's sort of ongoing with Indigenous artists who feel like they're being pushed into doing certain things. That's just very consumable. That's very, very sort of extractive. That's easy for institutions to digest.
Yeah. I think to continue with that thought, the last Audie Murray piece.
Second last?
Yeah. Yes.
or
second last.
Lucille's.
Yes. This one is, was this one also a radical stitch?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
There is a really big contemporary beadwork exhibition. I think the curators call it like a big ass beadwork exhibition, Radical Stitch. And it's been touring. Mm-hmm. It's been touring all over Canada. I think it's in the States
now
as well.
Yeah,
too.
Indianapolis.
Yeah. And so, anyways, I just wanted to mention that. I think Audie Murray has had beadwork in that show too. So, yeah. These are Audie Murray socks, and kind of speaking to the same idea of beading onto garments. Things that are, obviously meant to be worn. I think Audie here was playing with the idea of once you've added beadwork to something as mundane as sock, has it, elevated the sock to like a different, to like the status of, the status of art. And so, yeah, I think she did this like very early on in her practice, and I think this version is from 2021, but she's been doing some for a while, and she, just playing with notions of what is art and what makes beadwork, fine art or like high art or those kinds of notions. But, yeah.
We have one last piece by Audie Murray and Lucille Fisher, collaboration between the artist and her mother. So this is an audio piece where you can listen to Audie and her mother Lucille speaking about what to do and how to present this artwork. So her mother was studying painting. She was studying to be an artist at the University of Regina, I think it was, in the 90s. And she had this painting, and it was sort of an abstract painting of a Red River cart. So she was talking about Métis heritage, the Red River cart, the blue sort of pulled from the Métis sash. And this was a painting that hung in their family home for a long time. Eventually, it sort of went into storage and it got damaged. And Audie took it back out again. Her mother had sort of moved on. She wasn't as an artist anymore, but Audie had become an artist herself, and she was really inspired, I think, by her seeing, her mother was an artist before her, and her mother had went to art school before her. And so the collaboration was repairing the damage done on the canvas. So Audie beads, and she uses sort of stitching to fix her mum's canvas that was destroyed. And then the conversation, there's a 30-minute conversation here with a mother and daughter talking about, okay, what do we call this, and how do we fix this, and how do we frame this, and how do we talk about this? And it's a very sort of nice mother-daughter conversation and sort of negotiation about how to reinvent, how to collaborate on this artwork. So this is Jessie Jannuska's work. Jessie Jannuska is an alumni of Brandon University. She's an amazing artist. She teaches workshops as well. Hide tanning recently, beading workshops with children, workshops with everyone from the community. This particular piece is featuring Grace Mass, who's also at Brandon University doing a master's degree in, I think it was rural development. Grace has 6 children. She's an Iron Man, and she's a mentor to Jessie. Jessie had a series recently that was exhibited at I'm forgetting the name of the museum, the Mennonite. MHS.
Yeah, MEC or something.
Heritage.
MHC, there we go. In Winnipeg, and it was called Mending with Tradition, and it spoke to women in Jessie's life who had a really great influence on her. So it spoke to different elders that she's had relationships with from Brandon University, and then also Grace Mass, who is also a woman who has had a big influence and inspiration to her. We can see at the bottom here with the red kerchief, Elder Barb Blind, who once again is a very important part of the Brandon University community and leading the Beating Babes, which is the group started by Kathy Mattis at Brandon University. And then there was another Métis artist that I asked Jessie about today, and her name was Erin something, so I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the last name. But yeah, do you want to speak to this piece being at the Winnipeg Art Gallery?
Yeah, Jessie actually created this during residency at the Winnipeg Art Gallery. So I think it's about, I want to say a week. Yeah, like she made it pretty fast, I think. Amber, just a friend of ours in Winnipeg, also helped stretch it and tie it, and so it was really nice. Like there was a lot of like community people going in to check on her and check on the progress of the piece. And she was also working on another body of work as well. She was making comics.
Yeah, graphic novels.
Graphic novel, yes. She was doing all kinds of things. She's very she's like multimedia. Like she uses all kinds of materials. She's obviously a beater as well, we had just finished working on a larger. We were using skateboard wheels to bead like a morning star, basically, like this big like morning star that's currently in a window at the skate park in Portage Place in Winnipeg. And so Jessie had actually facilitated that, and so literally right after she was at the WAG working on this. So she was just very, very creative, always making things, and she loves beads.
To have a solo show here at the AGSM, I think in 2026? 2027. So watch this space.
With Mending Tradition and comic strips.
Perfect. Yeah, very exciting.
Yeah. And then finally, right, we're at the last, so the last artist, anyways.
Yeah.
Cheyenne LeGrande and her mother, Cikwes, or Connie. We also walked past a couple of the hangings. Those were stills from this performance. What's it called? That fabric? Organza, yes. Cheyenne loves organza. She loves anything very organza, anything sheer. I think, again, there's that idea of like fading but also transparency, a lot of interesting things happening there. So this is the performance Molian Nimitu. Molian was a woman who lived on their reserve. I can't remember the reserve right now, but they are Cree, and they're Cree. Their reserve is out in Alberta.
I want to say Big Stone First Nation, or am I making things up? No, maybe I'm making things up.
I can't remember right now, but there is a woman named Molian who was kind of like she was a free spirit. Like she's very, like a fun person. And people started calling Cheyenne Molian, because they were saying that, that Cheyenne, when, Molian passed away, that Cheyenne got her spirit, I guess. And so if you've met Cheyenne, you would see that, because she's a very bright person. And fashion, clothing is very important for her. And it's used in her practice as well. But Molian is also, just funny side note, apparently her name is actually Marianne, same as me, Connie was telling me. And in Cree, there isn't, she was saying that the R isn't pronounced the same way as like people often use an L sound, and that's why it's Molian. But yeah, this is also, okay, so there's a few things here to mention. They translated Chandra, I can't remember the last name right now, but there's a recording artist who translated Dreams by Fleetwood Mac into Cree. And also with recorded it. It was translated by Cheyenne's Kokum and her mother. And then there's the shawl, the Bepsi shawl. The community basically gathered a whole bunch of Pepsi can tabs, or I guess maybe just soda can tabs. Like, I don't know if it was specifically Pepsi, but and then she created this shawl. So it's this literal, like, sort of this little object that was brought together by the community that Cheyenne is wearing. And then she also wears a pair of platform moccasins in this performance. But again, this idea of bringing your body into the world, into the environment, and just sort of like claiming that space.
The identity that she plays with as well is sort of like an alien identity
Yes.
as well. Her mother refers to her as my sweet little alien. So you can see with the aesthetic choices, the makeup and everything too, she's otherworldly. She's sort of transcended this time and space. She's from another planet as well.
Yeah, she had an exhibition recently called Nehio Alien. And Nehio is Cree, Plains Cree. So yeah, she definitely likes to play with this idea of aliens and like kind of
Star
futurism
people?
and star people and sort of multi-dimensional worlds here.
Yeah, I think Cikwes was also explaining to me something about the Cree language and coming from the stars, and sort of the idea that there is some kind of extraterrestrial sort of connection, at least it's sort of in stories.
And that's what I love so much about Cheyenne's practice, is that it's so infused with her mom and everything that she's learned from her mom. And it's very, obviously we have Audie and her mom, who's also an artist. But I just like how all the times I've seen Cheyenne perform, it's always, been with her mom, and her mom is like such an integral part of her practice. They're basically like artists. They're like a duo, I guess. Very artistic family. Her brother is also a designer. So,
Well, we were very lucky that we got funding from Manitoba Arts Council, the BC Arts Council, and of course the support from the AGSM to be able to bring these artists here for the opening. So Cheyenne and her mother flew out from Edmonton. I think actually Cheyenne was at a residency in Montreal, but they were here for the opening and they were able to perform together. We wanted to show both the shawl and the moccasins, but the shawl was on its way to Australia for a performance there, so we weren't able to show the shawl, but we do have a pair of moccasins that you may have noticed when we were walking by there. Michelle Sound flew out from Vancouver, so it was very nice sort of to bring people from all over Canada together for this exhibition.
Also wanted to put the Cheyenne's veils across from Laurie's as well, the sort of use of garments and like fabric in different ways. Like Cheyenne is protecting, is like sort of protecting and enclosing it around herself, but also sort of opening it up. And I think there's a different thing going on there with Laurie's robe, but this idea of like movement and using it's so integral to Cheyenne's practice. The way like fabric moves and flows and can protect or might not protect, especially with that kind of like the sheer that she likes to work with. But just to think more about the fabrics and then
Any questions or comments?
Is there an artist or a piece that you just couldn't get that you really wanted to get?
Well, the Bepsy shawl, for sure.
Yeah,
that would have been epic. That would have been monumental to have it sort of just here.
Yeah.
Because it's such a beautiful... But we got to see it at the performance, so yeah.
I think also the cake.
Oh, yeah.
Audie Murray's consume.
Yeah, it was at Fasika's gallery in Vancouver, and we could have done it, but we already had like shipping coming from all over Canada for the show, and it was getting logistically difficult and expensive. The bead cake, that we both loved the work.
Yes, the bead cake, and then also today I was saying Laurie's Cosmo Squaw magazine cover. That would have been
with the light box.
The light box. Yeah.
Yeah,
that would have been really cool too.
Yeah,
or a surfer. Yeah, thank you.
I'm really, really happy with how everything came together.
Yes.
I mean, we had wonderful support by the gallery. The artists were lovely to work with. We got lots of funding to be able to ship things from all over Canada. So, it was really a great experience. And every time I come in here, there's something that gives me goosebumps. I mean, there is something here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's really beautiful, really helpful to hear you speaking, because the relationships you're talking about with the fabric, from that room to these translucent ones to the performance piece, and then the motif, the circle, which moves around the gallery, even from the light over there, these beautiful bronze pieces. I have a question just about the Hudson Bay sock. Is that anything to do with reclamation and resistance, beading over this colonial object and, with this iconic branding?
Yeah, I think she has beaded over or used other Hudson Bay, I think, objects as well, or at least like objects that have like the stripes on them. Definitely, I think that there's something there too that she's playing with.
I was thinking about the Hudson Bay stripes and the beaver pelts and the fact that Canada was a corporation before it was a country, and it was run by the Hudson Bay Company and the Northwest Company. And for Indigenous people, it could be a very complicated relationship. I mean, being Métis, my ancestors were all Hudson Bay Company men. For better or for worse, that's part of our heritage and part of our history. Some Indigenous people really don't like that part of our history. Other people are still sort of aesthetically sort of like that. So with Audie, actually, I don't remember what the reference is to that, but I think she often takes a more critical lens. So you're probably correct there.
I think I was reading an essay about I think Yaz Morgan was writing about Audie's work and was mentioning the fur trade and all that, and those sort of complicated but also gendered the gendered sort of history there, how the fur trade and like all these legal and political movements that were happening with the Métis are so like masculine, and everyone associates like Métis resistance and all this with the
Louis Riel
and all this, but that there's this like cultural sort of resurgence and transmission, revitalization is because of the women. And so, I think there's that there,
And the matriarchy as well, I think, is sort of the theme of the show that keeps sort of repeating as well. Any other questions or comments? If not, thank you so much for coming and joining our tour, and it was a pleasure.